Hi there. Okay. So, this is actually technically 5 parts, but I'm going to read it all as one. And, my cover art here is something I've never tried before. I wanted to mess with text a little, so I was trying to do color dodge on my text, just to see what would happen. It's kind of a neat effect. I'm not crazy about it, though. I don't really know how to use it, though, so that's gonna be something I play with another time. But I thought I'd try it for this. Keep the thumbnail very simple and try to do hints. So, I want you to take a guess. Like pause the video and type every single person on this screen. Like who you think they are. Some of them are really easy, others are kind of difficult. Like even I would be a little confused if I didn't put it down myself. Like the gray blob up there. I know what that is, but I'm very curious if you guys figure it out without me reading the tags. So pause the video and take a moment to try and guess. Um, my brain, if it could function. I am uploading the Peaches video as we're speaking at the moment, so that's going on. Let me actually see. Ah, yes, public. Okay, it actually is done. So, My Hero Academia one shots and chapter ones, and there we go. Copy that link, and whoa, we have Peaches uploaded again. I am going to delete the broken one. Yes, delete forever. I, you're probably confused how I got 6 more minutes, but it's called I rambled. I absolutely fucking rambled. Um, X that link out, then boop, and then post now, and voila, we fixed that. Now let me go uh give the author fixed link. There we go. Fixed video link for the author. Voila, we have done it. We have magically done it. We are fucking magicians, guys. Okay, other than me setting up all that jazz again. Uh, Brain, can you, like, actually not? Can you not? Um, I recommend watching the last video if you want to know more announcement bullshit. But some of you are probably a little confused still because I last time said I woke up at 7. Like, why would I still be tired if I woke up at 7? Well, I went to bed at 2 a.m. Now you get why I'm tired. How I'm even functioning right now, I have no idea. But we're going running with it. Um, we're fucking running out the wind here. Let me delete that. Yeah, that video is gone forever. That old Peaches video, the messed up one, is gone forever. I've nuked it completely. Sorry to the 3 people who commented. Okay, let me actually get to reading not comments, reading the fucking tags, because there's a lot of them. For the sake of speed, though. Oh, that is not the right fucking. There we go. For the sake of speed, though, because I think this fic is approaching the 75 tag limit, I am going to say a shortened version of each name, so I'm not going to say full names. For tags only. Jen, My Hero Academia, no crossovers or anything. You know what? I'll specify if it's ever a crossover of any type, but I don't think I need to read those two in most cases. Anyway, Midnight and Midori Izuku. I'm just gonna say Izuku. Izuku and Hawks. Other relationship tags to be added. Me/suffering. Izuku Midoriya. Midori Izuku / being a fucking genius. Izuku and Miracle. Izuku and Snipe. Ah, shit, I forgot that one on the thumbnail. Fuck. Well, I guess you know one person that's not on the thumbnail. I thought I forgot somebody. I honestly thought I was gonna forget fucking Mount Lady, but no, I forgot Snipe. Oh, it's sad. Anyway, Miss Joke and Izuku. Uh, Izuku and President Mike. Izuku and Endeavor. They talk. He's still a dick. Anyway, Genium and Midoriya Izuku. Izuku and Wash. How many fics actually have Wash in it? I'm genuinely curious, guys. Do we need more Wash representation? Like native? Like, I swear to God, the only reason I ever write native is because I'm like, he's kind of funny in the same way, like, it's a bad joke. You know? I like my bad jokes. I have dark humor, so bad jokes are funny to me, okay? Um, but, oh my gosh. He's a bad joke, but I feel like it's just cool the idea for him to have like a spirit animal quirk or like something like that. I don't know. Anyway, back to actually reading the tags. Where the fuck was I? uh, you know, Izuku and Mount Lady. I've actually seen Mount Lady feature in a lot of fics, surprisingly. Anyway, Midori Izuku and getting mugged. It happens a lot. Izuku, Midnight, Hawks. Other character tags to be added. Snipe, Mirako, green duct tape. Some simping cashier. Miss Joke, President Mike. Some asshole teacher, I don't know. Endeavor, Ida Tensei and Genium. Wash, Mount Lady. Quirkless Midoriya Izuku. Analyst Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya Izuku does not have one for all. Midoriya Izuku is a ray of sunshine. Quirkless Hawks. Quirkless Midnight. Support items. Heroes use support items to look like they have quirks. Genius Midoriya Izuku. Middle school student Midoriya Izuku. Quirkless Snipe. Quirkless Mirako. Mirako is a little shit. She gets bitches. Join the My Mom's a Bitch Club today. Quirkless people have the extra chojoy to wear custom sneakers, red shoe. Should I just call that red shoe theory when that comes up? Because that's a big ass tag. Anyway, a shit attempt at a robbery. At robbery. I use speech to text to spell Samaritan. Fair enough. I wrote this while listening to Markiplier, our Lord and Savior. I forgot some of these tags are fucking unhinged. Suicide baiting. Attempted mugging. Death Mike. Present Mike. Quirkless present. Was that a Discord notification noise? I'm going insane, guys. Quirkless Miss Joke. Pee Men. I have no idea what that is. Bullying. Stabbing. Quirkless and Ever. He's still kinda dick, though. Quirkless and Genium. Midoriya Izuku is a pain in the arse. Markiplier, my beloved! Count the amount of Markiplier. I now want to know. Moth, if you listen to this, I genuinely want to know. What do you think of tofu? The funny thing with the whole tofu thing is somebody actually was looking into it a little bit more and noticed that a bunch of other snakes people were finding out did that. Some reason snakes don't like Markiplier. Okay. Markiplier, the snake repellent. Anyway, washing machines live longer with collagen. I have no idea how to say this word. Autistic Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya Izuku is a little shit. Quirkless Wash. Quirkless Mount Lady. Crack and Crack treated seriously. My favorite tags in the universe. This is Misleadingly Quirkless. The Fool's Gold Act by MothMothhMothh. Summary. It turns out that quirkless people are a lot more common than the world would like to think, especially in heroics. Hiding in plain sight always was the best way to do things, Midoriya supposed. aka, heroes pretend to have quirks, more or less deliberately. But Midoriya's got them all figured out. Um, okay. I'm gonna state, though, this has 5 chapters, but I'm just gonna read all 5. I don't think there's any notes in any of them, but if there is, I'll read them out if they matter. If they're just rambling, I'm gonna leave them alone. Anyway, let's get to it. It wasn't until he was 13 years old that Midoriya realized there were a lot more people in public eye that were quirkless than most thought. He couldn't say he was surprised for how quirkless people were treated nowadays, especially in the heroic side of things. The first hero he discovered that lacked a quirk was Midnight. In all honesty, Midnight didn't mean to mislead people in the beginning. She really thought that the gas dispensers around her wrist were noticeable enough for people to identify them as a support item. It wasn't until her 5th arrest that she realized they all thought it was her quirk. The quirk she didn't have. She laughed and decided to go along with it, for shits and giggles. 12 years later, and nobody had figured it out. Not until she met a hyperactive teenager with far too much free time. Namuri was just trying to get home when she encountered the child. He ran out in front of her, a notebook tucked under one arm and a pen held tight in the other hand. Wait, Miss Midnight-san, he cried, hand outstretched. She shrugged. It's just one kid. He can't be that much trouble, right? Sure. She crouched down to the teenager's level. What's up, kiddo? I've been analyzing your fights, and I just wanted to ask you something. It won't take long, I promise. Namuri mentally prepared for any inappropriate questions that might be asked and planned out reasonable responses. Are you actually quirkless, or do you just hide your actual quirk? His eyes were wide, brimming with innocence and honesty, and Namuri nearly lost her balance with surprise. Pardon? She choked out, begging to have misheard. Well, all, all the kids at school say I can't be a hero because I don't have a quirk. But I noticed that your original bracelets were bulkier, and that's where your mist comes from. He stopped to take a breath. Then I noticed that everybody that's been close to you has smelled a really sweet scent, which wouldn't make any sense if it was your quirk. So it only really makes sense if you wear really heavy perfume. Namuri blinked, never in her 32 years of life. And if that's not part of your quirk, logically, neither would the aesthetic part. And if I had to guess, I'd say it's Silver Fernernane. Uh, am I right? His personality 180'd, from confident to timid, as he shifted his feet anxiously. Namuri gaped wordlessly, brain frozen, as she desperately attempted to respond. Kid, that's on the spot. You're a damn genius, shorty. She gave him a wide grin. I can't wait to teach you at UA, kiddo. She ruffled his hair, stood up, and walked off, successfully hiding the shake in her step. She hoped she wasn't around when Nezu discovered him. When Midoriya first saw Hawks, he knew something was a little bit sketchy. Of course he was right. Kego was perfectly fine with his quirklessness. His parents, on the other hand, less so. They chucked him away the second they found out he wasn't special, and the Hero Commission had picked him up. They saw him as expendable at first, trained him to die to the moment to the moment until they decided to use him as a test subject for the first prototype of mechanical wings. It was the first time he'd ever been attached to an object in his life. The red shrine awakened something in him, his favorite color in the form of freedom. From then on, he was only referred to as Hawks. Kego whistled, kicking a rock lazily as he waltzed across the rooftop. His tune faded to silence when he caught sight of a teenager banging on the roof access door desperately. He frowned and allowed his wings to unfold, gliding to the lower rooftop with practiced ease. "What you doin', kid?" he drawled, kicking his feet playfully. The teenager, most likely in middle school, froze, slowly turning to face the winged hero. "Hawks?" he stuttered, eyes widening in surprise. He grinned wildly. "The one and only." The student gaped, snapping out of it to grab a tattered notebook from the inside of his blazer, a pen already in his other hand. "I've been meaning to ask you something. It'll only take a second if you say yes. Of course, I perfectly understand if you don't want to. I'm just some kid you don't even know, and..." Kego cut him off. "Go for it, kiddo. Ask away." The boy hesitated for a mere second before opening his mouth to speak. "I noticed a while ago that you only work alone, and I was wondering if that's because you're actually quirkless." Keiko blinked. Once? Twice? In my mind, it makes sense. Because the Hero Commission really isn't known for being progressive. So they would so they probably wouldn't want to waste backup on you due to their bigotry. I'm really, really sorry if you're not quirkless, but your wings reflect too much light to be actual feathers, and that means they're a support item. He paused, inhaled deeply, and continued. And I mean all the kids at my school say that support items are useless and it's the quirk that matters. But if you're quirkless, that means I could still be a hero, right? Keiko looked into his viridian irises, which at some point in the last 5 minutes had transformed into puppy dog eyes, because he couldn't say no to a face like that. He smiled and replied honestly, "Of course you can, kiddo. Let's get you to a safer level right now, though." And without warning, Kigo picked the teenager up and circled the building, slowly declining in height until Midoriya's feet grazed the ground. Keiko hovered for a second before giving the student a wide grin. "See you around, kiddo," he called over his shoulder as he flew away. Midoriya stood there, mouth open, processing what had just happened for a second or two, before clicking his pen and frantically scrawling what he learned about the hero in his notebook. Ignoring the way the nib dragged on the wet paper, the lump in his throat fading, and the autograph from All Might still decorating the page before. Chapter 2. Also, I will read the little summary thing because it is kind of funny. Midoriya harasses a poor good Samaritan, beats the shit out of a would-be robber, and accidentally compliments Miro's thighs to her face. He is not having a swagtitious time. F in chat. That is literally what it says. You can go look at the fic. I wrote almost all of this in one setting. If it's shit, pretend like it isn't. Because I am sad. From the second he first laid eyes on Snipe, Midoriya knew he was quirkless. The red shoes were the first indicator, followed by the slight inaccuracies in most of his shots. Unnoticeable to most, and then there was the way he acted. The man despised the media, in the way that reminded Midoriya of a cat's dislike of citrus. He avoided them like the plague, and cloaked himself in an aura of mystery. Snipe was a busy man. On top of his hero work, he had to train at every given opportunity to give the illusion of a quirk. Exhaustion was something he was well acquainted with. He sat on a bench heavily, letting out a long and slow exhale. A plastic bag was pooled next to him, a week's worth of food filling it, ready to donate to the locals that needed it. It was moments like this, he mused, as nobody gave him a single glance. He was grateful he had thought to put a mask on his costume. He sat there, just watching the world go around, for an hour and a half before the child came along. He narrowed his eyes when he caught sight of the teenager at first. The student stared right back, grinning widely. His first thought, a logical one to those in the field of heroics, was that the child was going to try to recruit him for some villainous organization. He groaned, preparing for the worst. The kid walked up to his bench and took a seat next to him. He turned to the hero, green eyes wide and hopeful. Snipe, right? He asked, voice shaking. The hero raised an eyebrow. Who was asking? The teenager's eyes lit up and a wide smile graced his face. I've, uh, I've been looking for certain heroes, and I'm pretty sure you fit the kind of hero I'm looking for. And what kind is that? Snipe asked, curiously. The boy shuffled his feet in anxiety before speaking again. You're Quirkless, right? He looked at Snape, eyes wide and pleading, in a way that reminded the hero of the stray cat outside his apartment, that begged for food every time he passed. What's it to you, kiddo? Well, I've asked a couple of other heroes similar questions, but do you think someone like me could be a hero with enough practice? I know you're using homing bullets too, but your practice is what makes you the hero you are. Snipe leaned back. He hadn't been expecting the kid to ask him that. He was about to question what he meant by someone like him before he caught sight of the child's shoes, a mirror image of his own. Course, kiddo. What kind of weapon you looking into? The kid's the student's smile transformed into a wide and slightly terrifying grin. Knives, sir. Snipe nodded thoughtfully in response. Good choice, kid. Say, if you're trying to be a hero, how about you help me out by giving these food packs to the locals with me? The student pulled out his phone, turned on his location, and sent his mother a message detailing where he was going, and who he was with. Smart kid, Snipe thought. What's your name, kid? Midoriya, sir. Midoriya Izuku. Mirko hated children. Children, babies, teenagers. She despised babies for their noise level. Children for their insensitive if, and incompetent questions. And teenagers because there were too many were sexist assholes or pervs. Unfortunately, since choosing her occupation as a hero, she encountered many, many children. If she could go back in time, she'd axe kick herself for even thinking about being a hero. That was until she met a singular exception. Midoriya really didn't mean to get Semi held hostage. He promised. He only wanted some milk, which was understandable, considering it was his replacement for water. He refused the clear liquid and its disgusting taste. And he was pretty fucking thirsty. It was just his luck that the shop he entered was invaded by a criminal less than a minute after he got through the door. Life was a bitch, and he was a dog toy. The criminal, a man in his late 50s with no noticeable weapon and no quirk activated, Midoriya judged him heavily. Put all the money in the bag, or I'll blow this place the next year, he hissed, holding his coat as if there was a hidden weapon inside. After making sure the cashier was in no danger of being injured, he picked up a tin of sweet corn and hurled it at the man's head with all his strength, wincing in semi-sympathy when a loud clunk sound rung out as it made contact with the criminal's head. Looking around frantically, Midoriya grabbed the first roll of duct tape he saw, an unfortunate shade of neon green, and began restraining the man. Once he was finished, and after he made sure the attempted robber was in the recovery position, he stood up. Could you call the police, please? I'm really sorry, but I left my phone at home. The cashier shook their head. Sorry, kid. I used the silent alarm to notify the heroes. They should be here any second. They looked out the glass door. If you're a vigilante, I think you should scram now. Uh, vigilante? He squeaked, dropping the remains of the duct tape that had been clutched in his hand. Before the cashier could clarify, the door was kicked open and a hero kept in. Looking everywhere before they could before realizing the criminal they had been sent to deal with was on the floor and unable to move. Ah, man, she sulked, putting her hands on her hips and glaring sternly at the greenette. You, she hissed. You did this. Midoriya gulped. Hey, Mirko. He didn't use his quirk, if that's what you're worried about, the cashier spoke up. Just chuck some sweet corn at him, and he conked out. Mirko's scowl didn't lessen. Alright, Squirt, what's your deal? What do you mean? You got that look in your eyes. You want to ask me something. Spit it out. Midoriya appreciated her straightforwardness, but also felt highly threatened and wished to reside into a shell and live out his lifelong dream of becoming a turtle. Midoriya tried to figure out how to phrase his question. You're quirkless, aren't you? It wasn't a question, it was a cold, hard statement. So what? Ya bigot or something? Her hackles raised and muscles tense. No, I was just wondering why you decided to go with a rabbit. She raised an eyebrow. It's just that rabbits are considered weak and fluffy, and there are so many other animals you could have gone for theme-wise, and Mirko cut him off. I like rabbits. You got a problem with that, Squirt? Of course not. Would I be right if I were to say you chose a rabbit theme to fake Quirk because of your legs? It took Midoriya a second to realize how his question sounded. Not like that, Kami. Not like that. I promise. I meant that you most certainly exercise your legs more than most, which makes sense because legs are very useful. But rabbits are also known for their leg strength, and it makes sense because the hero held a finger to his lips. Shut up. I get what you mean. And you're right. But tell anyone I don't have a quirk and I'll punch you to America. Got it? She threatened, looking at the cashier too, who held up their hands in mock surrender. I would never. Quirkless don't out Quirkless, and I stand by that. Conviction drenched his voice, getting the point across pretty fucking well. Maybe you're not so bad, Squirt. But next time I see you, she narrowed her eyes, watch your shins, 'cause you might not have them anymore. Midoriya smiled. That went pretty well, he thought. The cashier let out a deep breath. Holy fuck, she could kill me and I thank her. That was so attractive. Okay, I'm not gonna read the notes this time. They're kind of funny, but they're not enough to where I'm gonna read them out and interrupt the story more. Let me get to the next chapter, chapter 3. Announcer voice introducing two asshole side characters. And President Mike and Miss Joke. But who cares about them? I do. That's the author. Okay, let me drink. When Midoriya was a child, he'd called in to President Mike's radio show and asked if a quirkless person could be a hero. The man had chuckled and responded with, Of course! Being quirkless just means you gotta work twice as hard. Younger Midoriya had ridden off that high right up till the moment his teacher told him he was better off dead. Running into said teacher was most certainly not something he planned, especially whilst training for the UA entrance exams. Midoriya had been in the middle, quite literally, of cleaning up the local beach. Microwave in hands, he walked towards the skip he hired, and almost dropping it when he made eye contact with his old teacher. He froze up, holding onto the device like a lifeline. The teacher, known to Midori as Tanaka-sensei, grinned widely, like a wolf cornering an injured kit. Ah, Midoriya-kun. The student barely restrained a flinch. It's been so long. The man paused, his eyes glazing over with a look of pure sadism. I thought you would have killed yourself by now. He chuckled to himself, as if amazed by the greenet's will to live. Honestly, I should have suspected you'd be too scared to do that. A quirkless like you wouldn't know the first thing about being brave. Tanaka scoffed, giving the teenager a dirty glare. Midoriya allowed their mouth to drop slightly, not enough to be easily noticeable, but enough for his sharp exhale to slip past his lips undetected. He glanced to the side, praying for some kind of miracle to free him from the situation that was just a tiny bit uncomfortable. It seemed like the fates answered his call, as a man spoke from behind him. Well, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure the way you're speaking isn't the most legal. Midoriya's eyes lit up as he spun around. discovering himself to be face to torso with present Mike. Tanaka gaped in surprise, blinking wordlessly. Hey there, little listener. Do you want to tell me why this dude's harassing you? Midoriya took several seconds to find his voice. He was pretty sure he put it next to his All Might hyperfixation, but it somehow ended up on top of his social anxiety. He, he used to be my teacher. The student paused, taking notice of the kill the glare directed at him by the aforementioned teacher. The hero's smile hardened, the warmth in his eyes freezing over. As a hero, I do have the right to apprehend civilians for offensive behavior, and wouldn't you know it, that includes quirkism. He flashed his teeth threateningly. Tanaka paled and took a step back. You have no proof of anything. Yamada chuckled loudly. I recorded your whole interaction. You broke more than a few laws. So I wouldn't worry about running into more of us quirkless people outside of prison for a while. The teacher's eyes bulged when the hero used the word us. Under the ob- obvious assumption that Present Mike was quirked. Midoriya gasped in realization. That's right! Your use of Hatsume Inc.'s Earthbreaker speaker resulted in them deleting all evidence they made it, just so you could register it as your quirk. They exclusively designed it for you, because you're already deaf. Each word that tumbled out teenager's mouth caused Yamada's smile to widen. He ruffled Midoriya's hair. You're great, little listener. Man, I wish I could learn things that easily. As for you, the hero turned to the teacher. The police should be here any second to arrest you. I hope you have a shit drive to the station. Pulling Midoriya under his arm, he walked away from the man, muttering, What a fucking twat, under his breath as he went. Midoriya had never been very good with navigating. Maps were fucking useless, and compasses simply spun around and around and around. It was as if his very existence offended geographically. He honestly had no fucking clue how he accidentally ran to Kibetsu Academy. He was emotionally a homing pigeon without the homing and without the pigeon. He stared at his phone, which was supposed to display his path back home. However, the glitching screen that stared back at him didn't seem like it would help him much. Placing his head in his hands, he let out a deep sigh. Geographically was for suckers. He could make his way home easily. Who needed maps anyway? Midoriya did. Midoriya needed maps. Unbeknownst to Midoriya, he'd caught the attention of a teacher who'd spotted him from the window in the school. Midoriya stumbled forwards like a newly born deer, making his way to the front of the school. A pretty safe place to a dodgy dead end that was slightly less safe. He turned to exit, but found his path blocked by an angry looking man. Uh, Midoriya began. You you look awfully young to be out at this time. Don't you have school? The man growled, stalking closer. I'm homeschooled, Midoriya lied, backing up against the brick wall. Really. You know, when I was your age, I never missed a second of school. I had perfect attendance. And look where it's gotten me. In an alleyway? Resorting to mugging people. That was not the response Midoriya was hoping for. He glanced at the ground, spotting a really nice rock that looked good for giving potential muggers concussions. Now, kid, how much money you got? Midoriya had 645 yen, but that was dedicated towards Pokemon cards. The mugger would have to take it from his cold, dead corpse. None. I was just trying to get some exercise. Midoriya desperately searched for a way out. It seemed the really nice rock would be put to use after all. Such a shame. He slowly bent down whilst the criminal was monologuing about how shit jobs in society were, and he wrapped his hand around the smooth stone, feeling up the weight in his palm. Just as he prepared to throw, a tinted gas slithered into the alleyway. When it reached the would-be mugger, he curled up on the floor in laughter. Midoriya blinked. Uh, he began, not sure how to finish his very in-depth sentence. Hello? He called, honestly not expecting an answer. A head poked out from around the corner. Midoriya squinted for a second. Miss Joke? He gasped, holding his hand over his face when he remembered just what had been put into the air mere seconds ago. This is such a coincidence. I've been wanting to ask you something for a while. His voice was muffled by his hand, but Fukiago managed to make out what he'd said. Ask away, kiddo. We've got a while before the police get here. His eyes shone when he heard her voice, blown away by just how happy someone could sound, so free from exhausted, while the two in the most stressful jobs, and with the economy collapsing around them. I've been wondering for a while, where do you get all your laughing gas from? I tried to find some online, but it doesn't have the same concentration and isn't anywhere near as effective. Well, kiddo, she pulled down her face covering, taking a mental note of Midoriya's shoes. Let's just say I've got some good friends in good places, yeah? Midoriya buzzed with the lack of information. That means it must be the Hatsume's work. What? She dragged out the word in fake disbelief. No way, I don't even know who they are. She wiped the sweat from her brow. Midoriya rolled his eyes, smile still wide on his face. That's bullshit, and you know it. Midoriya finished on that note, walking past the hero. Most certainly not so she couldn't see his fanboy expression, and headed in the direction to go home. It's the other way to Musatafu. Fukukagu go called, tightening the handcuffs around the criminal's wrists. I can't believe the baby swears. She mourned, pulling out her phone to harass Izawa about his future student blessing her with his present. Holy fuck, I had such a time saying that name. Okay, next chapter. Chapter 4. The Flaming Dickwad, trademark, makes an appearance, and Midoriya gets mugged for the 500th time. Average weekend. There's also light stabbing and a tiny bit of bullying, so, be careful. Oh, the notes actually do have to point out any typos or mistakes. I beg you. Maybe I should just be like, hey, Moth. While I was reading this, I found 60 of them. You want me to, like point them out? You just want to listen to me attempting to read and having a stroke. Sorry, I'm just playing. I do recommend going to read the fic yourself, but yeah, this is chapter 4 out of the 5. Let's get to it. If there was one secret Endeavor had to keep between his home life behavior and his quirklessness, he'd pick the quirklessness every time. He despised the fact he lacked power more than anything and took it out on those around him. Midoriya had begun to link the fire hero's personality, a barely concealed inferiority complex, topped with self-hatred, but never in a million years he would have thought it was because the man was quirkless. Midoriya winced as she shoved back, as he was shoved back into the wall. So tell me, his classmate sneered, how did a quirkless fuck like you end up in the heroics course of UA? Midoriya flinched back from the punch aimed at his head, not completely dodging, as it would just end badly. I don't know, I just did what I was told. The student in front of him scoffed. Who'd you have to bribe, huh? God like you could make it. He cackled. It's laughable, honestly. He forced his hand into Midoriya's hair, pushing his head back roughly. God, look at you. Can't really do anything, Deku. Midoriya held back tears, forcing himself not to cry. The boy slammed his head into the wall once more for good luck and walked off, hands in pockets. Midoriya sighed, fruitlessly attempting to smooth his hair, dusting off his clothes. He walked out of the school grounds, more than happy he would never return there. He found himself making his way to the way towards the beach. He hadn't been there since he last encountered his teacher, the experience adding no enticement towards the place. He hadn't it hadn't taken him long to get there, which wasn't surprising considering how familiar he was with the journey. He dipped his shoe into the sand, taking his first step forwards. Despite his past experiences, he felt he felt some kind of attraction towards the coastline. Perhaps it was the fact he spent 10 months cleaning it, but it could have been the really cool knife he found there a few weeks back. He sat there and thought of all the heroes he met, of all the past year's events, gently releasing his anger into his surroundings. A sharp, musty scent alerted him of someone behind him. He opened his eyes, and was met with the sight of knees. He looked up and made painfully awkward eye contact with Endeavor. It took him a second to recognize the smell. Rubbing alcohol, he muttered thoughtfully. There is no way Endeavor was. His thoughts became more frantic as he put things together in his mind. He glanced at the hero's costume. That's not just fire, he thought aloud. It's dyed butane. You used a specialized type of alcohol for flames that actually touch you. That makes them last a lot longer than normal. And you use the channels on your suit to keep it moving at high speeds, then release it at your target. Midoriya caught his breath before continuing. You're quirkless. His eyes widened in the realization. He scooted back, suddenly very glad the hero had barely acknowledged his existence. Endeavor took a step towards him, aggression rolling off him in waves. Shut it, you brat, he hissed, failing to hide his surprise. If you tell anyone about this, the hero threatened, letting out a puff of fire from the Brutane channels. I won't, he promised, knowing full well it was complete bullshit. He was going to tell everyone who would listen. Well, that or use it as blackmail at a later occasion. Probably the latter. The man growled, and Midoriya promised himself he would only return to the beach if he absolutely had to or was dying. It would be nice to have my ashes scattered here, he thought. I could annoy people in death, as I wish to in life. If there was anyone who relied on the income of heroes, it was Tensei. He hated to admit it, but his engines simply broke too often, and it wasn't exactly easy to discreetly repair them, considering they were supposed to be his quirk. Only his parents knew. Not even his little brother was aware of his lack of a quirk. And that's just how he liked it. Unfortunately, he made the fatal mistake of rescuing a teenager, soon to be his brother's classmate, who was just a bit too observant. Midoriya was well aware of the fact that 15-year-old was probably not supposed to be out at 3 in the morning. He deliberately decided to ignore this, because it was more convenient too. Of course, his decision ended terribly, but it was the lack of thought that counted. In Midoriya's opinion, being held at knife point had nothing to do with the time he was out. It was just a coincidence. Unfortunately, the situation did not care that it was coincidental, and he was still utterly fucked. The criminal appeared to have a simple quirk, slightly magnetic hands, that attracted the change in his pocket. Hey dude, I'm really sorry, but I've got revision to do, so He paused to lick his lips. If you could let me go, that would be great. Midoriya had never revised a second in his life, but if it got him home safely, he might consider it. The criminal pondered for a second before his eyes narrowed. It's summer break. You have nothing to revise for. Midoriya looked to the side helplessly. I'm excited for the new year? The man's grip on the knife tightened as he lifted it towards the student's torso threateningly. Just give up your stuff, kid, and nobody has to get hurt, he hissed, digging the blade into the fabric of Midoriya's hoodie. If there weren't a wall behind him, Midoriya would have backed up. Dude, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't. Some dude tried to mug me a couple months back, and I try to limit it to once a year. If he weren't completely quirkless, the teenager would ask to be checked for a bad luck quirk, because running into this much trouble couldn't be normal. I don't care, kid. I want your money and your phone, or I'll. The man was cut off as a hero raced down the corner, speeding towards the criminal too fast for Midoriya's eyes to track. It wasn't until the mugger was tackled to the ground that Midoriya realized the villain didn't have the knife anymore. He found it soon after, though, looking down at the blade deeply embedded in his torso. That is not good, he stated, pressing his hands to the injury. Fuck! The hero cursed. God, I'm so sorry, I didn't see the knife. Hey, it's fine, Midoriya reassured. I'm okay, like 3/4 stabbed. I bet you 500 yen I don't even need a hospital. The hero narrowed his eyes. I will not take you up on that. Emergency services have been called, and there should be an ambulance here in 15 minutes. The hero gently lowered Midoriya to the ground, tearing off a strip of his outfit to tie around the injury. Midoriya squinted at him suspiciously. You're Ingenium, aren't you? He slurred, blinking hard in a valiant effort to restore his vision to its usual unblurred state. We can go over that later. Right now, we have to slow the bleeding. Yeah, Midoriya muttered, pouting. Tensei tensed up as the teenager gripped his forearm with blood-stained fingers. You use Hatsume ink for your engines, right? Because I got into this argument. The student paused for a long second. With this dude, yeah. We made a tiny little deal. Where'd I get a bodyguard if I was right? Tensei resisted an urge to give the boy a scathing look, and focused on trying to keep him talking. But I'd also said I'd give him my quirk if I was wrong, and he indicated towards his red shoes, as if that had held the answer to life. I don't really have one of them. What the fuck? Tensei whispered under his breath. Internally, he wondered if it was his punishment for not seeing the knife. But Kami couldn't be that cruel. And I knew you didn't have a quirk because your whole family has leg-based engines. And it didn't make sense, so Tensei blocked out the teenager's verbally issued essay on his really fucking weird life and wished for the ambulance to arrive sooner. Notes for this chapter. You poor soul. How the ever living fuck did this Fic get that? Subs. Oh yeah. Okay, next chapter. Chapter 5 and the last one. Midoriya is autism trademark towards Mount Lady and meets with a living washing machine. Notes. Yeets this and runs. God, I should have been typing out a message for each of these chapters of any typos I notice. Because the author really wants typos. Stuff fucking blind. I beta, and how I beta is I read aloud to beta because it's easier. But anyway, let me get to it. Midoriya was really concerned with the public's lack of common sense. Mount Lady for had been debuted for less than a year, yet the second he'd seen her first fight, it was painfully obvious that she was quirkless. It honestly seemed like she wasn't trying to hide it. It was a pure fucking miracle that Midoriya was the only one who figured it out. Midoriya did not plan to interact with the hero. In fact, he tried as hard as he could to actively avoid her. Unfortunately, life, the spiteful bitch it was, had other plans. He just wanted his first day at UA to go smoothly. It wasn't that much to ask. But as he stared at the semi-deflated balloon of Mount Lady, he knew it wasn't going to happen. Pulling out his phone, he dialed the numbers the school had given him for situations like this. Yeah, I'm Midoriya Zuko. I'm gonna be a little bit late. He sighed and walked across the abandoned train station until he was right next to the hero's pathetic excuse of a fake quirk. Excuse me, Mount Lady, Shit! What are you doing here, kid? She swore, brushing dust off her suit hastily. Don't worry, I already knew you're quirkless, but he was cut off again by a streak. I was so careful! What? But I was so careful! Midoriya raised an eyebrow. You use a fast inflating a balloon with barely any control and the use of a very noticeable gas cloud to hide you whilst it fills with air. It's not that good of a cover. She scowled at him. You couldn't come up with anything better, kid. Stop giving me shit and fuck off already. The thing is, though, Midoriya really need to learn when to keep his mouth shut. I could, if you want to hear it. He waved his hand dismissively. Of course, if you want me to leave, I can. The hero slowly turned around. I'm listening, kid. Make it quick, though. Midoriya pulled a notebook out of his bag. He had planned to do this remotely, with a third party involved, but he knew an opportunity when he saw one. Well, Hatsume Inc. recently developed a prototype of some sort of robotic armor. I'm sure for the right price, you could ask them to make one like you that could pass off as your larger version. And then all it would take would be a few messages to someone with a quirk that could shrink and enlarge things, and you'd be good. He flipped over to the next page. For the second part, I'd go with Kodaya Akito. I looked at a site with people's quirks, and hers is really cool. You would need another person, though. Would you like me to explain? He asked, looking at the hero hopefully. He'd been wanting to go on a quirk rant for a while, and there was an unsuspected candidate to be at the receiving end right in front of him. She nodded, and Midoriya allowed a wide grin to stretch across his face. All right, Kodiya-san has an ability to shrink and enlarge things she's been in contact with, as long as she isn't touching them, unlike her daughter's quirk. However, it is tied to her consciousness, so you'll need to ask someone called No Hankia. Her quirk allows her to switch the consciousness that a quirk affects to other people. So if someone were to hit with a quirk that meant they were mentally affected, she could take the effects and move them to someone else. It works better when the quirk's side effects, which is just what we need. Takayama stared at him. I don't know, kid. How would I even contact these people? Midoriya's smile widened. Good question. When I discovered their quirks, I reached out as soon as I could, in case a situation like this arose. So I have both their numbers and permission to give them to you. I trust you to call them at a reasonable hour, of course. His stare hardened, and an aura of malice surrounded him like a shield. Takayama gulped, nodding hastily. Uh, of course! Midoriya took a step back. Now, I really should get going to class now. Have a perfectly average day. He called over his shoulder. The boy had absolutely no fucking clue how he was going to get to UA. It was pure luck that Kego, as he insisted Midoriya should call him, had spotted him and recognized him, offering a ride that was gratefully accepted. Midoriya admired Wash. Really. The man had picked the most fucking hilarious quirk cover he'd ever seen. He was literally a chemist in a washing machine, and Midoriya lived for it. Not only was he a prominent online figure who shamelessly supported Quirkless rights, unsurprisingly once Midoriya knew he wasn't quirked, but he also made it well up to top 100 of the hero rankings. Given the chance, Midoriya would build him a shrine in his room. Meeting the man himself after a shit day at school, Midoriya wished he'd planned it. He openly gaped at the hero as he threw a tear gas capsule, shortly followed by weaponized bubblegum at the criminal, something Midoriya hadn't known existed before, trapping the man and leaving the poor, poor hero at the hands of a quirkless teenager. Wash? He gasped, barely resisting from rubbing his eyes in disbelief. It's really you? The hero looked from side to side, then pointed at himself questioningly. Midoriya nodded frantically. You're fucking amazing, Wash-san. I mean it. Your fanatic use of a... He lowered his voice so that Wash would be the only one who could hear. Cover Quirk is truly inspirational to all the other quirkless heroes out there, along with the whole quirkless and weak quirk population as a whole. It's an honor to meet you. Midoriya shook the hero's hand rapidly. Please, if it's not too much trouble, could you sign my notebook? He subconsciously gave the hero his best puppy eyes, and the man crumbled, pulling out a pen and signing the page with a flourish. Wow, I'm your biggest fan. I know everyone says that, but for me it's true. I loved your work towards bringing attention towards quirk discrimination and the way you stand up for what's right. In my mind, that makes you a better hero than All Might. Wash's eyes widened, and he shook his hands as if deflecting the compliments. I mean, All Might did turn out to be tiny bit quirkus, but you get what I'm going for, right? Wash indicated for him to elaborate. He saved me when I asked if a quirkless person could be a hero. He said no and told me to give up, but Wash held up a hand and made several hand gestures that could be roughly deciphered to mean fuck him, he be a badass bitch. Midoriya wiped the tear from his eye. I couldn't have said it better myself. I couldn't have said it better. Although I do have some interesting facts about both All Might and Endeavor that think that I think you might want to know. The younger boy enticed. The washing machine man? He lives longer with Kalgon, indicated for him to continue. Right, so Endeavor's an asshole, yeah? Well, it's because he's quirkless and fucking hates it. Usually I wouldn't out someone else, but I trust you, and he's a piece of shit. And All Might, he can't teach worth shit. Midoriya sighed. I mean, honestly, his lesson plan is shit. And when a kid tries to fucking kill me, he doesn't care. Dude's definitely a bit of a dick. Wash agreed with him. And the next week we've got this trip, and I hope to Kami he doesn't arrive. Midoriya shook his head. At least I can bully the teachers. I think I could harass Kego, too. He mused aloud. He glanced over to Wash. Do you ever regret becoming a hero? Wash shook his washing machine and pulled out a phone to type. And when he passed it over to Midoriya, there was a short message displayed on the screen. Although there were times where it was difficult with the discrimination and hearing my teammates shit talk others like me, I never regretted saving those lives. And based on what I heard from Ingenia Mirko, neither should you. You're going to be a great hero, Midoriya, and I can't wait to see you get there. The student teared up again. When did you recognize me? He asked, handing the phone back to the hero. It was passed back to him after a few minutes. The second you started talking, you have a fantastic brain, and your thought pattern is really unique. Midoriya smiled brightly, tilting his head to the side. I want to be a hero like you. He started, then cut himself off. Not a washing machine, of course, but one who can stand up for what they believe in, with no fears. Someone who is proud to support others. The teenager grins. I'm going to be an openly quirkless hero because of you, Wash. And I owe my drive to all the heroes I've met who have encouraged me the way you did. Wash gave the student a thumbs up, and what Midori assumed was a smile, before retreating to converse with the officers there to collect the criminal. Unbeknownst to hero and student, the ex-vigilante who had been listening in slunk away, returning to the shadows with a changed resolve. I love this fic. Also, can I just say, if that's not Stain at the end, I don't know who the fuck that could be. I don't know who the fuck that is. If it's not Stain. Sippy tea. Um, okay. I'm probably gonna have to take a break before I record the next one because my voice is starting to go out. So I did take like a 10 to 15 minute break mid recording just to do that. Okay, this is funny. The notes here. I'm considering writing a vaguely linked sequel, but I don't know if anyone. Then I noticed that everybody had. Okay. Fuckado cried.